Hello, welcome back. Today I'm going to continue reading from chapter 5 of my book, Sparrowmancer. And I know that's reversed. That night, he and Leech camped beside a hover car. They turned it on its side and built a fire against its undercarriage. This got them talking about the Clip's ICE vehicles, their loud engines, the rooster tails of dust they'd thrown. Sparrow was grateful for Leech's good company, but it seemed to him that the feeling wasn't mutual. Leech was distant, politely dismissive. Maybe he was just uncomfortable spending the night in the dead city. Sparrow didn't trust his insights into people. He never had before, and he was certainly a lot more dubious now. He didn't analyze Leech further than he thought he could. It wouldn't be long until they were far away from each other. In the middle of the night, a building collapsed. Leech and Sparrow woke and looked around for plants, and they found nothing. Sparrow went back to his rubber blanket, but Leech remained on guard. Neither of them slept for the rest of the night, and in the morning they got going before the sun rose. The day was warmer than the last few had been. There were no clouds. The sky stretched over the soaring buildings, ion blue like apple's eyes. Sparrow and Leech turned southeast, then east at last. The tall buildings were behind them. The outskirts opened, and trees appeared along the streets. Not far from the city limits, they encountered a flattened neighborhood. There were craters in the ball courts, long burns across the streets, battered shelters, and clinics with their roofs knocked into them. When debris blocked their way, they had to go through an apartment building. They went up close stairwells and down muraled hallways, oppressed by death or worse. Something followed them through the dark, but they never saw it. When they finally found a window with a fire escape, Sparrow was glad to be under the clear sky again, even if the neighborhood was wasted and charred. At least there was air outside worth breathing. Then as Sparrow and Leech left the haunted apartment building, a band of Clips ambushed them and arrested them at gunpoint. The Clips pointed Mayon rifles at them, confiscated Leech's little plasma channeler pistol, and shut off Sparrow's hoverbike to toss it into the back of an ICE truck. Would they take it apart? Certainly they knew what it was. It would be useful to them. More ICE vehicles appeared from the ruins. Clips rode their Nerf bars, decked in spikes and eye black. Some of their cars had harpoon cannons or EMP grenade launchers where their rear seats should have been. These were plat hunting weapons. Their vehicles were all painted with urban camo. Leech cursed and threatened them, but they were focused. They moved almost as if hypnotized, with no anger or prejudice, and without saying much. This was just a job, and they had done it before. Sparrow watched them work, the precision of their operation, the subtlety of their communication. He wasn't as angry as Leech was. He just waited. They put Leech and Sparrow in flex cuffs. "How many did you kill at Spires?" Leech shouted. "They're looking for me." We'll make sure they find you, said one of the clips. He had a USB port implanted in his shoulder, and there was a cord plugged into it. The other end of the cord was attached to a device on his back that was lit up with blue LEDs. Sparrow was certain that the device didn't do anything. It was just corporal decoration. Lift my right pant leg, Sparrow said. You'll find that I am a machine. You are machine worshippers, aren't you? Don't care, said Bodymod. The clips shoved Sparrow and Leech into separate cars. They rolled soon after, taking a secret route out of the city. Through the doorless boot to the hatchback he was in, Sparrow saw a big plat far away. It was purple, with quad DEWs on one side and 6 digitigrade legs. He knew it by the ranger's description. Barno. The platform Rom said had gone north. What had the Spire's rangers really known? How subtly doom could come. Sparrow knew this. He wasn't astonished. He had seen the dread inevitable. But Leech was young and easily wounded. It was offensive to Leech that there was anything he didn't know. Jory was the same way. What would doom look like when it found her? Sparrow remembered when his skin had been thinner, but he didn't remember being young. He thought he'd known how old he was, but maybe he was wrong. Almost certainly, he thought. Why don't you kill us? Sparrow asked, as the car bounced east down an embankment. The vehicle was so loud that he had to raise his voice. Its engine howled and its suspension creaked. The clips drove like disaster was following them. Sparrow presumed it was, in the grand scheme of things. With death assured, one might as well punch it. One of the two men on either side of Sparrow spoke in answer. He was handsome. He had reflective goggles on, and he was wearing as a chest plate a car hood that he had cut apart and articulated with wire. Sparrow noticed that he had a black rash on his neck. "Do you want to die?" he asked. His voice was sonorous. "Not particularly," Sparrow replied. "I wonder whether or not I can." "Machines can die. I've seen it." "The black rash on your neck is called Kobol's mark," Sparrow said. "It's magical in origin, being caused by a minor curse. I can break it." "A machine that breaks curses," laughed the other clip beside Sparrow, "and looks human." Sparrow looked at the hands in the flex cuffs. He knew an incantation for mechanical disruption. It wouldn't take 3 seconds to stall every car in the clip's small convoy. But he didn't know what would happen if he did it. They might kill Leech, and if he and Leech killed them, the other clips might hunt them wherever they went. Sparrow didn't want to leave trails of enemies thirsting for his blood, any more than he wanted to leave trails of corpses. He kept his mouth shut and waited to see what would happen when they got where they were going. The clip convoy comprised 3 ICE cars, an ICE truck, and a hoverbiker on point. They crossed the scrub at breakneck speed, putting the dead city far behind them. Sparrow sat in the back seat of the rear car and meditated. He thought about Apple, Tob, and Rom, and he thought about Atlas people. They would be moving now, leaving their village to travel to the next one, far to the south. Sparrow learned that the Clips called themselves transhumans. Bodymod was something like a leader. Sparrow tried to engage his captors in conversation, but they told him to be quiet. The driver switched on the car's radio. It received broadcasts beamed from orbiting AI satellites that didn't know the world was gone. The music was tinny through the blown speakers. The people who had written it would never write anything else. The only evolving music left in the world, as far as Sparrow knew, was ritual songs sung in campsites. Music was magic, but it seemed the gone people hadn't known that. If the sounds coming from the Clip's radio were any indicator, gone music had been more distracting than anything else. But the Clips liked it, and they sang along with it. Lyrics about love, loss, and parties. At last, the convoy arrived in a rocky place. They pulled up at a compound near the mouth of a box canyon. Some Clips met them, and Sparrow watched them unload his hoverbike and walk it through a high gate. As his captors pulled him out of the car, he surveyed the land. There was an empty corral in the canyon. A long log cabin watched a bare field. 2 transhumans sat on the porch in handmade chairs, looking strange in their armor of car parts. A group came out of the cabin and walked up to greet Bodymod. One of them was a man wearing an ornate headband and a leather poncho. The man in the poncho patted Bodymod on the back. Then he approached Leech. "What were you doing in the ruins?" he asked. Leech said, "Fuck you," and tried to kick Poncho. His captors held him by his arms. The man then came to Sparrow. "What were you doing in the ruins?" he asked again. "Trying to get out of them," Sparrow said. "What do you want with us?" The man squared his jaw. "We need people to work." "Your field is blighted," Sparrow replied. "One of your men is cursed. I'm a mage. I can help." "He says he's a machine," said Bodymod. Poncho walked back toward the log cabin, and his compatriots followed him. The other Clips took Leech away. He thrashed against them, but they were strong, mountains of muscle. He looked small between them. After all, he was still a child, too young for all this insidious brutality. Slavery. Leech didn't deserve this. Sparrow decided that he was going to kill the man in the poncho. The Clips took Leech to a tin sheet shack. As they disappeared into it, Poncho returned. He had a scanner with him. Sparrow noticed with some surprise that one of his compatriots had a prosthetic arm. It moved easily, like Sparrow's new leg in Leech's hand. Programmable matter. "Hold still," said Poncho, as he waved the scanner over Sparrow. He scanned Sparrow from head to toe, and then he looked at the readout for a moment. "You're ascended," he said. "A real transhuman. Where did you come from? And who made you?" "I came from the end of the world," Sparrow replied. and I made myself. Pancho looked at the people behind them. They were all wearing beaded headbands like his. Sparrow thought, they must all be the leaders. Shut 'em down, Pancho said. A woman stepped forward. Her green and yellow headband bore an image of a red gear, and there was a number of actual gears beaded carefully into it. She raised a white control pad, and then everything was darkness. That, at long last, is the end of chapter 5. So I shall stop. And when I return to this series, I will begin chapter 6. But I want to make a note, something that I noticed. This book is the first of 3. The second one is in print, and I am editing the last one. And in the second and the final books, Sparrow's hover bike has a grav brake that makes it impossible to move unless he turns the grav brake off. But in this book, the clips that abduct Sparrow and Leech are able to pick up and move Sparrow's hover bike. Clearly, this is a continuity mistake. Isn't that interesting? Thank you for listening. I will put a link down there to where you can buy this book on Amazon. And if you did, I would be ever so grateful. Have a nice day, and I will see you in the next video.